Hello and welcome to this session. The title is Positive Impact Through Sustainable Concert. We're looking forward also in the end of this session, or in the third part, let's say, of this session, to a discussion with you. But beforehand, we will start with 3 different point of views on the subject, and I would like to welcome on this panel Lea and Asbjørn. And my name is Beat, so we do this panel together. And as I said already, every one of us has prepared some thoughts, some insights, some ideas about this subject, and this should help us to come into a discussion. When I set up this panel, I started from the point of view, or the idea, or let's say the starting point was the problematic that we as art organizations, if you look about our emissions for CO2, one of the big problems we have is travel and audience. And then for this reason, it's quite clear that when we try to handle or tackle this, the whole sustainability idea, we must think more open. Otherwise we come shortly to the point that, okay, no concerts is the solution. Of course, for us, this cannot be the case. So the question is, why should we have concerts? Even we will have emissions from our public, from travels, or just to have the institution running. Why can we handle, why and how can we balance all those things? This is a kind of an introduction to our session, and I'd like to hand over to Asbjørn, who is doing the first input to us.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting, and thank you for joining this session. I'm very pleased to see that. Things have gone pretty fast over the last 5 or 6 years. I remember going back in time that one of the first orchestras I met that made a CO2 protocol on what they were doing and actually had a certificate. They didn't believe it themselves, and all the other orchestra managers that were presented to it was just rolling their eyes and leaning back. So many things happened, and I am from the Danish Orchestra Organization, and knowing that we are a very small organization, we in the Nordic countries always group together and work together. In that way, we are more people together to deal with different issues and subjects. And thank you for the introduction, Beat. We dealt with the same thoughts of how can we now work sustainable and be co-responsible for the challenges that society actually are facing. So what I'm going to present to you is what we call the Nordic Green Orchestra Guide, but you can all use it, and later on you'll have a code so you can download it. We can even provide you with the text in a raw format so you can translate it into your own language if you desire to do so. Doing this on yourself is a very hard task. Just inventing everything in your own orchestra is a very hard job, and you know that all your colleagues could do the same. So we, from the beginning, we decided to try to work together, and it is always a volunteer thing when you want to engage so many orchestras in a job. But we gathered at the Nordic Orchestra Conference, as we do every year, but we gathered in Iceland and had our first real discussion about this back in 2020. And what you see here is orchestra managers from almost all the Nordic orchestras who signed a declaration saying that we want to work green. We don't know how, but we want to engage into this. And that's the ending of the session. I mean, they're not forced to smile. They're not forced to sign the paper, nothing. But they're all aware of there's a problem and they want to do it. They're also very humble to the task. Being an orchestra person, or working with classical music, we're used to a no failure culture, and we're also very aware that we shouldn't greenwash or just pretend that we're doing. So they want to do it right. So we started a process. But before that, what I'm doing is I'm taking my own medication all the time. I had two options to come here to Berlin. I could fly, I could go by train. And for that, I had different things to consider. One is the comfort. Do I want to sit in a train for 8 hours? That could be very nice, the nice comfortable seats. Somebody would probably serve me a lukewarm cup of coffee at the time. I have a plastic wrapped sandwich somewhere on the train, maybe on Hamburg. That's a very nice restaurant in Hamburg. Or I could get just on a plane and fly down here. And that would just be 55 minutes and leave time for me to do my job. Hang on. I will relieve it later, what I did. And it's just to say, I won't blame anybody for the decisions. It's more important if you want to make a change in any subject, but on this also, you have to start with one person, that's yourself. So that's what I did. So the guide started, as you see here, in Reykjavik. We had 6 groups working together. It's not sensational in any way, but we divided all the managers up in 6 groups, and they had each a target, a subject to discuss. And that was just scratching the surface into what we were diving into. So what you see is that we more or less, I converted this from a Google slide. So actually that box up there would start playing the guide, but it's not possible here in PowerPoint. But anyway, we focused on 6 subjects or 6 things that could be addressed in working green with orchestras. And that would be, of course, the leadership and management. That's where you actually ground the whole strategy that you want to do it. You cannot just assign one person to say, now you make a green guide. You have to have it implemented in your whole organization. So you also have to communicate it to your audiences that you're doing it, and you want to engage your audiences in it. They still go by car. Of course, they can do that, but you can probably encourage them to do other stuff and to work together or to drive together, co-pooling, or to go public if it's possible. So also inside your organization, your procurement and acquisitions, touring, staff travel and measurements and evaluation is very important. So I'm a bit going fast through this, so please excuse me if I'm not getting everybody on the goal. But we want to make it easy for an orchestra to actually make a green strategy and to implement it in their business the best way possible. We know that they won't save the world because it's a very low CO2 emission. But what you have as orchestra people, you have an audience. And when the audience visit you, they actually are more likable to listen to what you tell them that what you are doing. So you have the opportunity to actually influence your audience, and in that way actually make them think more green when they go back home or in their ordinary life. Also your musicians, everybody, all of us are actually now under pressure to actually do something. We just need to do what. So we came up with a work group with people from Finland, Iceland, Denmark. We took the job and the task to create this guide and actually do it together and in cooperation with all the Nordic orchestras, in dialogue with them. And the guide is done. You can download it in a minute. And what we're doing now is, it's an open source guide. Everybody can use it. We also started now an accelerator program where we invited 10 orchestras actually to work with us and some consultants to actually make these recommendations into a strategy to build into the organizations. So we have now in a process of 6 webinars and 6 actual meetings where we get together and help each other doing this job. And what one of the managers said, actually, that was, I think, the CEO of Helsinki Symphony Orchestra, he said he was very happy to join this work because it was actually the first time he didn't feel his colleagues was his competitors, but his co-workers in a joint strategy here. Otherwise, orchestras managers seem to, in a friendly way, compete with their colleagues. But this is a joint effort. So we have a checklist. This one would also be animated if it was the slide system, but it's a checklist. It's very easy to use, and it's not necessary to do everything. It's necessary that you choose one thing and start there, and when you're done with that and implemented that, you can take the next thing and slowly just change your whole organization into thinking green. And what we also did is that as we meet every year in the Nordic Orchestra Conference, almost everybody come. We make a survey each year to ask, how is it going? Have you made a strategy? Are you working on it? All these things. And hopefully we will see a development that more and more orchestras are actually now thinking green and communicating into the audiences. And what's also important is actually you send a very strong signal to your political system, the people who actually feed us all with resources, money, that we're actually taking seriously one of the problems that they are dealing with when they're not dealing with cultural life. And then that way we generate political empathy, and that's not a bad thing. Of course, we are truly engaged in the green transition, but at the same time, it's a good thing to send signals to society and politicians that we're doing it. So we have the yearly status checks, we share networks, and we always look for opportunities for collaboration. It's not only in the orchestra world. All the cultural sector are facing these challenges and would like to work with it. So reach out to other people than orchestras, theaters, museums. Everybody's working on it, and give yourself credit for even small things you achieve. So back to my cliffhanger. How did I come here? I haven't made a survey, but I have to admit, I got on a plane. But whenever I fly, that's one of my changes. I check out how much CO2 do I actually bring out in the atmosphere. And I don't know what happened here to this slide, but there's a very nice German site called atmosphere.de. You put in where you go from, where you go to, what company you fly, and what flight type. What kind of airplane you fly. That comes up with that so far 89 kilos of CO2, and when I go back, it's also 89 kilos of CO2. And as you could see, if I went by train, it would be in total 38 kilos. So what should I do? I compensated. So I went, the best way is not to actually spend too much CO2, but when you can compensate at least. So I bought biofuel for the plane. That was 25 euros. That was a compensation of 178 kilos of CO2. But there's also alternatives to that. If I maybe had more time to do it, I could have bought in Iceland a machine that would take 178 kilos of CO2 out of the atmosphere and pump it down to the underground in Iceland. That's also an option. You can do that. That's the machine that does it. I wouldn't tell you how it works, but it works. Also, we could regain the box in Finland. That's actually when we dry out the box around the world, that would actually leave out a lot of CO2 in the atmosphere. So recreating the box there is also a way to actually compensate for my sins in the plane down here. And I would actually give a very nice certificate if I did so, but I haven't done it this time. Last time I went to Finland, I went by train to Stockholm and on a LNG ferry to Finland and trained from there. So I was almost neutral on that travel. So it's also possible, but it took me 24 hours. So I think the Q&A session, you can come now with questions, or we should leave the word to Lea and go on. What does my timing master say?
So I would suggest that we hand over to Lea and do the Q&A after the 3 presentations.
Very good.
So please, Lea, present us your thoughts.
Here you go.
Yeah, welcome also from my side. It's a pleasure being here. It's the second time for me, actually. And I'm very surprised about actually how I see how much more people are here than 2 years ago. Because 2 years ago in Hanover, we were, I think, around like 10, 15 people barely in that room. And that's also just with some advertisement I had to not be alone in that room, because it was not such a big target question. But now we see really the development is going, and we are dealing almost all with the same issues. So for me, I'm a violinist, but I'm also a climate ambassador. So for me, to talk about the issue of climate change is necessarily connected with my profile as an artist. And I developed like a kind of new word, because for me it's very important to talk about the role of artists, because we are the connection between the culture institutions and the audience. So our biggest resource actually in communicating climate change and sustainability with the audience is that we have so much audience there. I can quote one research from Germany actually, and if I see it correctly, even the person who did it is sitting here in the room, is that we have more audience in the high culture business, also including theaters, etc., than the first, second, and third football league in Germany. So if for Americans it's a soccer, so if we would think that the whole football business would go sustainable and not make advertisement for Coca-Cola or Arabian Emirates all around, then we would see that it could have a huge impact, because thousands and thousands of people, millions around the world, are going to football games. So if we imagine that we have the same power just in smaller rooms and in more events happening all around the place all the time, we have actually a huge power and a big platform to use. So that's where my thoughts are coming from. And I made a little, also a slide performance here for you, talking first about the artist profile of the future. Then the medium artist, how artists could be a medium for that topic. The value-based audience development, because of course audience development is necessarily connected to what we see on stage. Sustainable workspaces for artists, because that's a big task. If there's no work to find when you implement social values in your profile as an artist, you might think twice or even 5 times if you really want to do that. And then in the end, an example of my own working life. So let's start first. I was playing a little bit with some cliches, how we say in German. The present values of classical musicians: high quality of playing, high education, high discipline, high orientation towards tradition, distanced and untouchable for the audience, neutral position in the society. You might agree or not, it's maybe a little bit, on the top, a little bit short form, but that's what we basically all see on the stages, on the traditional stages around the world in the classical music business. Now, what could be future values? I, of course, continued with high quality of playing, high education, high discipline, because we should never get rid of that. That should be always our priority. But I changed the other ones. A versatile education, because I think that especially when we are a public person, like a politician basically, we are having a stage, we are communicating with the audience, we should have a wide education and not being just good in our own field, which is classical music. So I definitely want to talk about that it's very important for artists to be a very educated all-around person. We are dealing with people, we are surrounded by human beings, and we are having an impact. If we don't know how to use our voice, what to talk about, it's going to be very difficult for us. And of course, the next point, and that is the active participation in social development. Because if you educate yourself and you see what's going on in the world, you pretty fast realize how many actually social developments are going on in the world, where culture and musicians could help just by using their platform to raise awareness. Just a few topics which are at the moment: racism, discrimination, emancipation, climate change, all those topics. How different would be classical music if it would be much more diverse, much more colorful in the audience and the musicians themselves, and also if you would be more aware of sustainability. Then the next, future and innovation oriented. Always try to search for new concert formats. Let your creativity flow, because I mean that's what we are doing. We are artists. We want to play. We want to share our joy about music with the audience. And what is better than creating something own? And if it doesn't work, you tried it out. You try it next time in a different way. And then, of course, the last and a very important point: the personal relation with the audience. I'm always being asked in concerts, when I go in the break to the audience, I talk to them. I perform whole concerts, so not just like one violin concerto, but the whole 1.5 hour, 2 hour concerts, always, because I say if I already am there, they want to see me. I want to be also all the time part of the concerts, whether I'm all the time the soloist or sometimes also changing and being the soloist in the first half and the second half sitting in the orchestra. Everything is possible. And I'm always being asked in the breaks, why are you here? Why are you between us? It's so cool. I said, yeah, because you are my audience. I mean, you give me the honor to come to my concerts and to give me the stage and to listen to me. You invested money, and it would be just very kind from me to say hello to you. So whoever wants to say hello to me is more than welcome, or even to talk about certain topics. Of course, there's time limit. So with 1,500 people, it might be difficult to talk to everybody. But after the concert, the same thing can happen. So I want to have a personal relation, because I think we all know it. I mean, if I would come to a room, I would say, like a typical traditional classical concert is happening, I would come here to you in the room and I would not say hello. I would just start my presentation like you're not existing. It would be a very different atmosphere here in this room. And that's what I'm trying also always to transfer to the classical stage. So the medium artist, I already mentioned some of the points. We are the most vital resource of the classical business. That's how I always describe us. There are always permanently coming new artists. So many ideas are floating somewhere, and maybe they are not there yet on stages because nobody listened to the ideas because they are new. But we can be so much more than just the violinist who plays a very nice Bach on stage. We are the contact point with the society, so not just with the audience, but in general, when the media, when the press is there, when the radio is there, and you give an interview, we have options to talk about other things than music. I was having a few interviews with radios, and they always ask me, tell us something about your life. And the last thing I come to is music, because everything else, there are so many interesting things on the world in my life happening that I want to talk about that, because that's who I am as a person. How I play Bach on stage, that's my music part, but I'm also an individual person, and that's how we have to start seeing artists. They are individuals, and not just a nice live recording on stage. And the most influential instance towards the audience, that comes of course with it. The value-based audience development, I put 3 examples of what one could see in the question, how important could we be for the society? So first of all, we could be definitely a help for long-term new audience. I think we all tackle more or less the same issue with getting young audience into our concerts, especially the Gen Z. That's a question how to get the young people in. So the Gen Z, I can just talk from my own experience with my 26 years old that I need personal identification with what I'm listening to, what I see. It's more important than ever. I mean, Harry Styles without the rainbow flag on the stage would not be Harry Styles. Billie Eilish without standing for her values would not be Billie Eilish. The pop industry already much earlier discovered how important is the personal identification with the idols. And the same thing, I think, could happen in classical music if we are aware of what we actually stand for, if we take some time beside practicing to actually think think about us as a human being? What do we want to stand for? And common social values bring identification into personal bonds. So that's the positive thing of when you share as an artist your personal values. The second one is reaching social relevance. So the artist who communicates values will be more controversial. That's always, as soon you talk about something, also here now, wherever you go and have an opinion about something, you will be more controversial than somebody who's just silent. But the good thing in that is it will grab attention and will gather a real fan base, if I use the word from the pop industry actually, because people know who you are. And I think all of us here in the room, we like more to talk with a very honest and open person if we know who this person are, than if we are all the time thinking, actually nice what she's saying, but who is she? What is she really thinking? We feel this not honesty in it, so we actually don't know to who we are talking. And this barrier, what is there in the classical music, through the distance to the stage, through the artists not talking to the audience, not moderating the concerts, not standing for values in interviews, not sharing values on social media, all these platforms where they could do that, it's actually a pity that we don't use that. And of course also developing a new classical climate. And there on purpose I wrote unexperienced and unknown opportunities for the implementation of culture in the society, because we have too little and too few, a few just examples to actually know how big and how great could be our impact on the society. I will come back now to an example from my own life, from a concert house who's already doing something great and green and sustainable. But there's just a lack of it. So we feel a general atmosphere in the whole cultural business that we kind of stuck. We have a lot of challenges. We want to get a new audience. And we feel like, but why are the others not doing more? And I have some conversations and nobody really wants to leave the old tradition, and it's safe. It's the safe space, definitely, because we approved that safe space in the last 50, 60 years. That's how long we already kind of do the business how we know it today. And that's why it's a very unexperienced and unknown field with full of opportunities that should be discovered by all of us. I mean, we are the creative business, aren't we? So we should be so much more creative in doing new things. And then the biggest task, sustainable workspaces for artists. Why do we need that? Social projects with renowned stakeholders will legitimize the importance of sustainability within culture endeavors. And that's so important to know, because if I now, for example, as a young artist, I'm 20 years old as an example, I want to do something. But all the stakeholders who are important in the business, they give the value to those ones who do exactly the tradition. It's going to be so difficult to implement new values into the business. That's why I want to make a little, reaching out to you that you are aware of new ideas. When you get emails, when you get requests, when you meet people and you think, oh wow, he thinks really modern, don't be afraid of it, go for it, because maybe these people can first of all need a platform, and second of all change your own cultural program, what you are offering. And there's once the financial part. I a little bit roughly structured it in just 3 parts. There's actually much more if one digs deeper. So the financial one is the official culture politics funding. So if you have the opportunity to support artists or also institutions, festivals, then it should be nice to have more support for the new projects, and especially for young artists. It's always the key that we have to already collaborate with big established concert houses to make financial funding, or to get a financial funding from the politic, at least here in Germany. Makes it very difficult, because if you come to a big institution, mostly the answer at the door is either you don't get an answer via mail, or the answer is, look, it's nice, but that's not the right place here and it's too new, and let's meet in 5 years, then it's more up to date. But we don't have time for that. We all should also have that in mind, as Asbjørn was saying, we have to start now. The next one is association. That's, at least in Germany, also a big thing to get support from associations. So either the artists or also the institutions to really go for new types of support or cooperations with associations. Mostly in associations you find the kind of creative and new thinking people also. And of course the vacancies, that's a that's a big thing, that there should be like jobs. For example, now in Germany, we are developing more and more the job as, or the field as, a sustainable manager for culture institutions, that every kind of car industry, fast fashion industry, that they all have already a sustainable manager is totally clear and obvious. But for us, it can also be a possibility that we have a new person working. So not everybody of us has to become an expert in climate change and sustainability, but you have one person. And just from my personal experience and from all the sustainable managers I know, listen to that person, what she's saying, because she knows the things, and probably she doesn't want bad for your organization. She just wants good and wants a change, but just for good for all of us. And in the end, the strategic thing is the management, of course, that managers, if you want to take artists, don't be afraid of new profiles. And with new profile, I don't mean just playing new music, new compositions. With new profile, I mean, don't be afraid of artists who wants to build up a very new profile and a very new voice, which is not existing yet, because that's what we need. I mean, just had a conversation today in the morning. If VW, I mean, you call it VWV in English, if they would still stuck with the old cars from the 80s, they would probably not be one of the best-selling car companies. They need new formats, they need new models, and that's exactly what we also need in the classical music. Marketing media, you can use really social media. It's a huge thing. And now marketing is sometimes the lowest sponsored and the instance with the less money, and also with, I don't know, they are not really liked in the classical business, in the traditional classical business. If there's somebody always walking around with the camera, I want to do something for Instagram, for Facebook, for TikTok, here, do a little interview. Easily one gets annoyed by those people, but they are so important because you reach the people where they are. And unfortunately, we are all, I mean, at least, especially Gen Z, where we are on our phones all the time, non-stop. And it's, of course, also now getting more and more in the older generations, since there's the generation getting older who grew up with phones. But that's where we are. So that's where we have to be picked up if one wants to reach out. So it's not a bad thing to do social media. It's the real opposite. Some institutions already do a great strategy there. Yeah, and then education and competitions. I'm maybe not going to make friends now when I say that quote, but Bartok once said, competitions are for horses. That's a thing. I support that. I out myself. I support that. I am not a fan of competitions. I understand the system of competitions, and it's definitely something what's good for the personal development as an artist. The preparation is very intense, but the typical modern competitions are still having the same criteria like 50 years ago. You have to play excellent, and I'm not questioning it at all. That should be always the highest artistic goal. But there are so much more things that could be included in a competition with new repertoire. And it doesn't mean necessary to squeeze in the first round between the Bach and Isai in the violin competition, which has to be played to squeeze in a modern piece. That's not what I mean with being innovative in competitions. And also in the education from the professors. Let us develop, let us be individual performers, and let's try out, be much more open for everything. And then the operative, the festivals, orchestras, go for sustainable concerts, go for green concerts, or go for normal concerts. And if they are sustainable, don't call them green concerts. Just do sustainable concerts. You know, it doesn't have to be always, oh, it's a green concert, or maybe nobody's coming, maybe the audience is going to run away. Then don't call them green concert. Just say it's a normal symphony orchestra concert, but of course it's sustainable. There's no question about it. So it's just the new normal. And yeah, sponsoring, green sponsoring. That's a big question. Go for green sponsors. One example in Germany, BMW, Lufthansa, AIDA, the biggest sponsors. If I play as an artist in front of their logo on stage, I cannot call myself political neutral. I'm standing for the values in that moment that I'm playing there, also if I didn't choose those sponsors. So give the possibility for green sponsors. And as I see, I have to come to the end very fast. The Green Monday at Tonhalle Düsseldorf, where I'm a moderator at the moment. It's a concert house in Düsseldorf. And in a 1 year's concert series starting last year, August 2023, we started to target in the normal symphony concerts we started to target every concert once a month another sustainable or environment topic. And we do always a talk with a person we invite, scientist, politician, and those people, I talk with them, I make a research kind of with them, a whole discussion with them about the topic of the evening, why it's important that we are tackling it that evening. And then we take it into the concert. They get a little introduction from me. So in case there was somebody who didn't want to listen to anything sustainable anyway, they get a little 5-10 minutes introduction from me on stage, why this topic is important and what exactly are we actually doing, because that's the key in it. Every topic we do one thing. For example, for the thing of energy efficiency, we reduced our heating for 1.5 degrees, and we shared it with the audience. We said today we are heating 1.5 degrees less. We calculated how much we are sparing emissions, and we asked the audience, do you like it or not? And they can vote with a yes or no in green and red boxes outside in the foyer or in the entrance, and they can tell us what they like. And so far, vegan vegetarian buffet, less heating, more transport with tram, another recycling system in the house, less light on concert stage. Everything has been voted with more than 70% with yes. So we have the proof it's working. Our audience is not running away. We have actually even a little bit more audience. And yeah, that's what I can say so far. It works. Just we have to give it a try. So.
Thank you very much. So I would like to share with you some thoughts how we can bring that together. How we learn about that music is always both. It's a aesthetical and a social praxis, a way of doing it, and how we can find a way to measure, how we can find a way to communicate what we are doing, and how we are influencing the society with our concerts, with the whole thing we do. So I would like to share with you a multi-perspective way of thinking and looking at that, because I think one number cannot fit, or let's say in a different way, just having full halls or just full halls is maybe not the one answer. And to bring that all together, I try to present here a system how we could maybe tackle that. Yeah. So first of all, it worked. Oh, look at that! Isn't nice? Yeah, it took me several hours to do that. And so that's so you must see that. That's really great. No, but it was the idea that I present a little bit myself. So my name is Fehlmann, and I work as an intendant for the Deutsche Staatsphilharmonie Rheinland-Pfalz, and this is Rheinland-Pfalz. So yeah, but I got inspired by your way of thinking about how I got here, and I also came here by train. And yeah, it's interesting if you contact different platforms of how much it is, you get different results. So I took the one from Deutsche Bahn, is the most neutral, of course. And Deutsche Bahn says, okay, it took me my travel from Mannheim coming to here is this 0.07 kilograms. And I thought, okay, and what's that? What means that? Is that what is that? So this is more or less what bananas. One banana would have as a footprint. So I thought, okay, I don't know if it's really the truth, but it's what they say. And just to put it in a relation, and I think this is something which will later on for my presentation also be one thing which is important, to find relations, to find a way to what means that, how we can relate to others, or how we can relate to what we do by ourselves. So my base, what I present here is an impact model, which I developed for the whole organization, and what I would like to share with you today is a adaptation of this model just for this or more focused on this sustainability on this sustainable field. So the model thinks in 4 dimensions or 4 steps. It starts with the resources, with the requirements, like input based. In our model, this means the finances. This means also the human resources. The next level is the output level, or this area of control. That's everything you can control, everything you can do strategically, like things like responsibility, the development of your organization, and also how you communicate to your audience or to your stakeholders in a bigger understanding. And the third layer is the outcome, is the sphere of influence, where we can change things, and we use for this layer, we use the idea of quality. Form means format, and content is what we perform, what we play, what's on the program. And then it comes to the 4th layer, the area of interest. This is the area we cannot control. We just let's say hope that there will be an impact, there will be a change in the society. But it's not just a hoping thing, it's a thing which we can control, not just in the idea of having 4 steps, but also in the idea of how we measure those things. So we normally, when we speak about sustainability, we use a framework of 3 different perspectives. Normally we have this economical, ecological, and social, and I add on a 4th perspective, the artistic perspective. I think for us it's really important to have in this kind of framework also what is the aim, what we do, the art form as itself. Therefore, I add this 4th perspective in my framework, and now to combine it, the framework and the impact model, I try to make this sustainable impact model adapted into this 4. It's again, of course, the same idea with this 4 different layers, these 4 different phases, and I just reduce the way of controlling, the way of thinking, like in those 4 dimensions: finance, emissions, content, and society. So it's again the idea of having music as a social and aesthetical praxis, and it's now the idea of finding KPIs, of finding way of measure in those different fields. And what I brought here to have it a little bit more practical is a way how we try to do it in our organization. So I would like to share with my next slides how we try to measure that. And of course, finance is the most obvious one. So what we do is we control the revenue on our different series we have. That's quite simple, quite obvious. I think I don't have to go too deep into that. And this is I can tell you the numbers are right, even if there's a spelling mistake. This is our carbon footprint, and you see again from the Deutsche Staatsphilharmonie, and you see again here what is the big part we have is in this scope 3. So we have 3% scope 1. This is because we don't own a concert house. No building. This would be different if we have if we had our own house. But scope 1 is just 3%, 10% scope 2, and 87% scope 3. And if you go into scope 3, you have on this side, you see that the biggest thing is the the emissions we have in regarding to concerts or to performance. That's really the biggest part. It's not easy to calculate that, but I think we found a way which is quite crucial and quite okay. And the whole amount of for the Staatsphilharmonie in this scope 3 is 566 tons of CO2. So this is to measure the numbers. I think it's always helpful and important to know what we're speaking about, and you can learn, having these numbers really set up, you can learn where to change in your organization, really the most important, which are the most important topics, or which is just marketing. We know that also. Sometimes we use marketing also, and it doesn't really change the output. The other thing is the content. So we have a strategy that we said we take care, or we have a bigger part of our repertoire should be based in the 20th and 21st century. So the question is, you know that from those processes, when you do strategic process and you do mission statements, things like that, and it's very easy to say that, or we normally are quite fast in saying something like that, but the question is how we measure that, and we found a way to measure it, that we calculate every minute of we perform. So the Staatsphilharmonie performs per year around 15,000 minutes of music. So 10 days. Yeah, that's the amount we have, and we structure the whole repertoire we do in those 4 categories. We know them. Some of the pieces are easy to say, okay, it's a Baroque piece or it's a classical piece, and some of them are a little bit more, you can discuss. But however, we do that, and we just count every minute we do, and we see what is how is the relation in between those different things, and you can see that for the 28-29, I got the old numbers because of COVID. We got quite a big amount of what we said that we will have more concentration on the 20th and 21st century repertoire. Even, of course, as a big concert orchestra, romantical period is very important also. But a little bit of that, what we was looking for, you can really find here. And the last thing is the society, and I just brought a project we had a chance to present this project also yesterday in a panel. It's the Ensemble Colorage. So we build an ensemble with orchestra musicians and musicians from the region in Mannheim, Ludwigshafen, with freelance musicians who come from a different musical tradition. They play also different instruments than just the classical instruments. All of them are professionals, and they come together with this idea of excellence, instrumental excellence, but they have different backgrounds, and it's this idea of a transcultural music making. That means we bring people together with a high standard of instrumental playing, but with completely different influences, with completely different history they have, and we bring them together with the idea that they create their own music. So it's for me, it's also a very nice way of a society model, that we bring together people who live in this area, who share the same passion, who share the same profession, and they create something new because they're here, or with their own experience, they create something which is unique, which just can happen because of they come together. And I think that's something which is quite interesting, and which I think is an interesting model also to influence the society. So what you can see, or I don't know what's your experience, and we heard it a little bit also from you, is that even in, or at least in Germany, we don't really like benchmarks. So sharing numbers or sharing things, we like to discuss, sit down, have a beer or whatever, but then when it comes to into numbers, or it comes too close, we don't like to share too much. So what we do here with this idea of impact measuring, we cannot compare with other institutions. The only thing what we can do now is compare with ourselves. And of course, it would be interesting to see and to learn, why are others here better, or what are they doing differently? I think we could learn a lot, but we have not this situation now. But even though if we compare with ourselves, we see the development. So we can, as a manager, I can see or I can have a feeling: are we going in the right direction on it or not? What are the progresses or the developments we made? And even it's maybe a weakness not to have the possibility of compare with others, to compare with ourselves. It gives us a kind of security that we are running in the direction we planned. We want to go there. So that's at least the way how we use this impact model. And it was the idea to share with you this multidimensional way of thinking, to come out of this question. It's not just about reducing CO2. It's always a decision. How, like you had to make to come here, there's this or this, and we lose something and we reach something else, and to find a way of communicate that, to find a way to handle that on a management level. I try to work with this multi-perspective or multi-dimensional model, and it helps me quite a lot to guide an institution, and also it helps me a lot to communicate with stakeholders, but it helps me also to communicate in the organization, and it gives us a feeling where are we heading, and that everything we do comes together to our main goal or our main vision. So now we move on to the third part of our presentation. Here you have contacts for sustainable relations. And now we would like to open up now for discussion, but Lea has something to present before.
Well, it's more us three, but I'm a little bit responsible for that part. So we thought we work with the Menti now, with this website. You might know it. And we have a little survey what we want to do here, and we were just preparing it actually while trying it out once. So I tried it out with my own phone to write something in if everything code works. So we had like a general rehearsal, and then we realized what I wrote in I cannot delete out anymore. So it's there, and you will see what it is. And you should be able now to go on menti.com and use this code in 66717441, put it in, and then we are asking, that's what I wrote in, like a little cliche, what I sometimes seriously hear: there will be no audience if we go for sustainable concerts. So now you have to unfortunately deal with that I tried it out. Pros and possibilities, or cons and fears of sustainable concerts, and enter it, it's totally anonymously, and we would like to see where you are at the moment with your thoughts. Everybody has a Wi-Fi here? Connection here in.
Yeah, so we let it run a little bit, and maybe we start with to react on some of the mentioned things here. Lea, you have the first choice.
First of all, it's great that you are so interactive. Really, we were thinking like, would you go for that? But it's amazing, and it's showing really actually some of the cliches. It's too expensive. It's Politisierung. That's I don't know in English. That's like too much to go in one direction and to have too many poles into the direction of green, and that could probably, I guess, that's a contra thing to have. Maybe I would go, A Planet to Live On. That's in the center. And since I have my whole life, hopefully ahead, I can just say that that's a question that's the most actual and recent in the mind of the young generation, I think. And it's always so far from us, this A Planet to Live On, because we are all from pretty prioritized, areas, I would say, when we are sitting here tonight. So we are far from that we see that there's a planet not to live on. But I think that this is a very important thing to have in mind, that we are doing culture. We are the culture industry. We are doing beautiful concerts. We are practicing. We are playing art. We are doing music. But we are all doing that just because we have a planet to live on. And this is going to be very unimportant for the future if there's no space to live on. And maybe just an example from the Corona pandemic. We had in Germany discussion, I think, in almost all the countries, that culture is not relevant for the society. So that was the first thing to be cancelled, to be shut down. Money went away. It's always culture, isn't it? And so I was thinking in that time, actually, it's true, because how could they think that we are actually relevant for the society if we are such a little part of the society, also with the values we are transporting? And I think if we want to be in the future, if we want to be part of the society in future, we need to be part of the society, but the real part of the society, and that's to care about what's happening in front of our doors. Scare old people, and I can say it's not true, because Tonhalle Düsseldorf, the audience, I would say 90% 70 years and above. And it's exactly like, it stayed like that. Just we added a few young people to the concerts while doing this sustainable concert series, the Green Mondays at Tonhalle. None of the old audience run away. The abonnement actually rised up. So we have more subscribers for the concert series than before. Little percentage, but we definitely don't have audiences running away.
Okay, thank you.
There's a question. Maybe we...
Yeah, we open up. We have a microphone.
My question is, hello, I'm Cecilia Tinnissen. I'm from Amsterdam. From Orkaan, we make staged concerts for young audiences, but that's not important for this question. My question is, you're talking about sustainable concerts. In my head, there is an error, because a concert is a concert. Are we not talking about the context, the praxis? Because a concert is a concert. I don't know what kind of clothes you're wearing. Is it plastic or is it sustainable made? That could be a question.
Well, it's always secondhand.
Okay, great. So that then it's about your yeah. So I think for me, a sustainable concert, I don't understand the question. Maybe I'm the only one, but is it more about the praxis or is it the concert? If we have 85 musicians on stage, it's less. It's a bigger impact than just one soloist on stage. So I don't know if I put a bomb on this question.
No, you did not. It's very relevant to take that discussion. And my experience from when we started out and we heard about the first carbon-free orchestra in Finland was, are the music printed on recycled paper? What is it? What's a green orchestra? The musicians were frightened because what should we play now? So it is the whole concept. We're still looking for words, and we're still looking for how to put it into a context. For me, personally, it's the whole organization. whatever, any company could make a sustainable strategy and still have their core product on the shelves, but it's about how you wrap it.
So then it would be the pros and cons of sustainable concert praxis.
Oh, that question, yeah. Well, would you say a few words about that, Lea?
Yeah, so it's of course about the whole business that what talks against to make concerts sustainable.
Not the concert itself, is it?
No, because the concert is the result of the praxis. So we cannot, the result of a sustainable thinking in the management is that the concert becomes more sustainable. The result of artists being aware of the climate and promoting it, or not promoting, but speaking up about that on stage, is a sustainable concert. The way how we, for example, combine tickets, that the ticket is not just a ticket, but we sell automatically also a link to the train company of the city, so people can easily click on a link on our website of the culture institutions and come to the link of the train that goes exactly at the right time.
I'm suggesting that we're not talking about, this is not about the concert itself, it's about the whole praxis, it's about the whole organization.
Agree.
Okay.
I think we agree on that. That's fine.
Okay.
You made your point. So you have a next one?
Hello, my name is Georgiana, and I'm conducting now a study on sustainability from the 3 dimensions: social, economic, and of course environmental. I think this is where maybe because of the broader aspect of the word sustainability, sustainable, I think this is where maybe the confusion appeared. But from what I understand, Asbjørn, you were talking more about the environmental sustainability, and Lea was emphasizing more the social dimension of sustainability. So to sum up, I think it's about people, planet, profit, the framework that Elkington used. And Beat was summarizing everything so beautifully, adding the artistic responsibility. I have one question for Asbjørn. Is there a way that you can maybe measure that political emphasis? You were talking about the sympathy, right, from the political side in order to raise economic sustainability. Is there a way to measure that? Did you already do it? Because that will conduct probably to more sustainable concerts from environmental point of view.
Thank you for that question. It's very, very hard to measure your political impact. It's an ongoing work, and you have to do it on several, sustainability is one thing, diversity, and other subjects that is not generally considered maybe part of cultural business. But when doing that and putting it into your overall political work, as me working for a business and an industry organization, it helps me a lot to change the narrative and the understanding of what an orchestra is doing. Because going back to one of the other sessions about audience development, it's how are orchestras perceived by public, and especially non-public, are people not going to concerts? Do they think it's worth the money, to be very blunt, to support an orchestra if they're not working with sustainability and diversity and just being, old-fashioned, a copy of, 1850s. So it's hard to measure, but I'm sure, and that's just my own personal impression, is that it works to say that we also work on that and we take it seriously. We take society seriously. Was that okay answer for you?
Yeah, there are more questions? Yeah.
I have a question in general. You were talking about the general or the cliche artists on stage and also the cliche concert. But the question is, how many concerts are there in the old-fashioned format at your house? Like I'm always also thinking about educational projects, children's concerts. Are there no concerts? Are you taking this into account? Because there's a totally different attitude, and like dinner concerts, swimming pool concert, whatever. So there are lots of different kind of spaces that they occupied, also with traditional ensembles and orchestras who are experimenting and are very well, perform make a very good job already in having different kinds of formats, talking to the audience, presenting values, discussing values through music, through artistic and aesthetics. What is the percentage?
Well, I'm not running an orchestra. Yeah. Can I just briefly, and then you go on? But as I try to present in our work with the guide is to make the organizations around the orchestra build this into their overall strategy, to make it a part of their whole business. In that way, the whole business is actually green or sustainable, not this single concert. But that would be, in my perspective, very hard to calculate.
Yeah, and I can just talk about, for example, Tonal Düsseldorf, where I am the moderator. We have 3 abonnement concerts, like for the normal subscribers of the concert series, where they get this big catalog in the beginning of the year, which we are trying actually to digitalize, so it's not in everybody's post anymore, and they immediately throw it in the rubbish bin at home. So we are having 3 concerts, Friday, Sunday, Monday, and all the Mondays became the Green Monday. So it's exactly 1/3 of our yearly program.
Yeah, I would like to go back a little bit on this question, or combine the question of this political dimension and your question. I think for me as a leader of an organization, I need to have the overview through everything, and having a broad portfolio is something which helps us a lot to find points of interest, to find points of building bridges to diverse audiences. And for my organization, I would say the percentage is, if you just count the numbers of concerts, I would say that the education part becomes more and more. It's about 40% of the whole thing we do. Just let's call it education, and then we have. I would say in thinking in this direction, I would say in at least 3 groups or categories, and the regular. So the regular subscription concert, I would say it's in our case it's 35% of what we do. Just counting the numbers of concerts. So that's I mean, if you look at the statistics in Germany, for instance, I know it was already mentioned the number of people we have, but if you go on a long perspective, you see that's true. The audience grew, but what's also grown is the numbers of performances. So we have less people in each performance than 10 years before. If you look at that, and that's an interesting development, and I think it has to do that we present more and more formats who are for a smaller audience. For me, it's not a problem. For me, it's a question: is it efficient, or has it an impact or not? That's the question. And sometimes I think the big audience, the big orchestra on stage, is something which really can transport a great message, but sometimes it's not the way to do it. But we as an organization, we can be flexible and we can offer a much broader variety of formats, performances for different audience, different groups, different kind of groups, different also different the measure of audience can be varied. And I think the question is, for me in the end, how big is our portfolio, and does it help to connect with the audience or to connect with the society? Maybe that. Some more questions.
Could I take one of the notes up here, the touring one, which is, one of the things that always came up in the beginning. Are we not touring anymore? And for most orchestras I've been working with in the Nordic area, the answer to that question is yes, we are not touring anymore. Why should we tour? We should commit our work to the community where we are placed. And it's more or less, maybe out of, financial discussions, or maybe it is really something that they took up on their green strategy, that touring is not what we do. But I know it's not a general picture all over the world, but they look the same, the orchestras. They play the same music, so why should they tour, except for, team building in the orchestra? So that raised a question up there.
Maybe just one sentence quickly to that. It's also, I think, there we come back to the question of how we define good and high and professional culture, because especially also for soloists, for example, it's a mandatory thing to travel all around the world. If you have played in Carnegie Hall in Japan, in Korea, in Hong Kong, in Paris, in Berlin, everywhere around the world, you are an established artist. If you play the same number of concerts in a more closed local area, it doesn't count at all. And that's also where we have to think about. It's not all because globalization changed our way of thinking. Everything what is global is good. And that's not what it has to be. Everything what is local can be as good as the global. And that's, I think, also the way of thinking. An orchestra is good when it's traveling, but as you say, it's playing the same repertoire, the same people, the same level. So that's also a mind change which we probably have to think about.
Thank you, because basically that's what I was going to say. I represent a freelance orchestra that does not have structural funding from the state. And the project funding that we receive from our major funders and stakeholders is because they perceive us to be internationally known, artistically excellent, and we can only achieve that by touring. The recent invitation to Carnegie Hall made a great impression on Monday, and I've just received positive response to a funding grant. That's just the reality of what we're dealing with. How do you navigate that and then travel green sustainability? I can't get to the States from Germany without flying. Very often the train travel is prohibitively expensive, which means that the promoter's budget does not cover that. Do you then not play that concert in Zurich because you can't get there? And yet your stakeholders are requiring you to do this because they won't fund your projects otherwise. I don't know.
Yeah, one important thing you said, there's written internationally renowned artist or orchestra or project. And that's what I was also talking about in these job descriptions. For example, if you apply as a professor, I would like to become, for example, violin professor as an example. And there's written, you have to be an international established and playing concert artist. So already there, you are out of the very good and high and, kind of professional and very how I can say, like, if everything what we stand for is based on internationality. So if you are playing everywhere, if you want to become a professor, if you want to become a leader, concertmaster, whatever, everywhere you apply in the high business, if you want to reach the high business, you have to travel, and that's the mindset.
Yeah, and I would say it's up to your raison d'etre. If you are a city orchestra based in one location, you are not traveling. If you are, your identity is being an international traveling orchestra, you should travel, of course. But there are many other ways you can actually think about your CO2 emission, not the travel itself. Of course, you can get to the States without a flight. It'll take a little while, but you could. And a ferry, I checked it with Iceland. I could go to Iceland not flying, but it would just be really bad for nature. I had to be on a ferry for 3 days and drive 600 kilometers in a car. So you have to travel, of course. And then you just have to look at all the other factors in your business. And I see hands. That's very good. I just heard yesterday in the Global Orchestra session that in Italy, to receive funding from the state, they have set up some quality parameters, and that one of them is that an orchestra get points for touring. If they're not touring, they're not perceived a quality orchestra, then they lose funding. That's silly, isn't it? So, that's a political work you need to do. And for soloists, of course, you need to travel.
Yeah, and I just would like to add on then, for me, the solution is, and we have to close the session after that, I'm sorry. But for me, the solution is, or one way to think about it is not just to think in a one-dimensional thing, to have what is the impact of your organization, to have it a bigger overview. And then if touring is a part of your DNA, it's clear that it has to be there, but you can balance it with other things. And to have this in mind, not just to watch in one direction, to have a multi-perspective way of thinking it, that will give you more idea of what is the impact of your organization. And I think it's completely crucial to have different ways of thinking it and different way of position it of an organization. But at least to me, this multidimensional thinking helps a lot to understand that we can be completely different out of that. So thank you very much for the nice discussion, also for attending here. Lea and Asbjørn stand here for questions. I have to leave, I'm sorry, immediately, but thank you very much for attending this panel, and stay sustainable. Thank you.